Friday. It's our guy, Eric Dungey. And, man, Eric, not fun last night. Not fun. What were your thoughts watching that all go down last night for Syracuse and Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I mean, it was tough. It was unfortunate. I don't remember the last time I saw a quarterback throw 4 interceptions in one half. Actually, I do, because it was me against Miami. And, from that standpoint, it really does mess with you, regardless of what anybody says. You try to shake it off and go on to the next play. But especially 3 pick sixes. I mean, I have actually never seen that ever. And it was just very unfortunate. Some were not his fault, some tip balls, and even the interception where the guy was literally laying on the ground and it just dropped from, the heavens into his arms. It was just like everything that could have gone wrong for Syracuse went wrong. And you look at the time of possession, Syracuse 41 minutes, Pitt 18. I mean, Pitt, had 100 or 217 total yards, put up 41. Obviously, the pick sixes are huge and the defensive scores from that standpoint. But yeah, it was a very, very tough game, tough to watch, but, you guys tip your cap to Pitt. I don't think they were the better team. I think they just had the better night.
You mentioned your game back in 2017 against Miami, and you were like, in some ways, that game was wild. You kind of bounced back in that same game, right? You guys made a little run in the second half of it. How hard was that to be like, what is going on? How can I make this stop right now and get back on track?
Oh, no, I remember. I mean, after sitting down at halftime, I was sitting there like, did I really just do that? And you're just frustrated. I try to shake it off, and I was like, all right, we'll still have a whole half of football to play. Mm-hmm. And I think in the second half, I primarily resorted on my feet, just because what Miami was doing, they just had us locked up, and it was basically the same thing as Pittsburgh. They were disguising, they were showing late, they were just giving Kyle a bunch of different looks he has not seen, and you could just tell it was messing with them. I mean, you got to tip your cap to that Pitt D coordinator, because they schemed him up and they did a phenomenal job. And you could tell that they saw Syracuse the first 6 games, and they saw the habits that they built, and they were just dropping guys, off the line into the curl spots. It was just impressive to watch schematically. But I think Syracuse defense actually played pretty solid. Mm-hmm. The defenses did their job. It's just anytime you're -1 or -2 in the turnover margin, it's going to be tough to win, especially when you're -5 and 3 of them go for scores. So.
Yeah, you're not going to win a game where you're -5, 3 pick sixes, and the other team is 31 points off turnovers. That it's just not going to happen. And you're right. I've never seen anything quite like that last night. And I think you bring up the interesting point here. Right? You're coming off the bye week. Pitt was coming off the same. Pitt comes out. I mean, what a defensive scheme it was. You didn't know who was coming for where. They were press covering you across the board. How worried are you if you're Syracuse about that going forward? Like, clearly it's a blueprint Pitt's put out there for Virginia Tech and other teams, but are other teams capable of doing that in the way Pitt did last night?
Oh, definitely. I mean, other teams, just based off the success of others, are going to steal that game plan, and they're going to see what they did, and they're going to scheme them up. So Syracuse has just got to go back to the workshop, maybe add some new wrinkles, and they have to get their ground game going. I mean, 32 yards from LeQuint, and I mean, granted, Kyle had some sack yardage that negated things, but you're not going to win games if you don't establish somewhat of a run game. And I know we throw the ball, 50, 60, 70 times a game, but as we see, if you live and die by the pass, then it could really come and haunt you. So got to get LeQuint going. The offensive line has got to give Kyle a little more time, and then Kyle's just got to shake this one off. I know he will. He's a competitor. Everybody has those games. There's one game in your career that just is going to stick with you and haunt you. This will be his. But you know what? If he bounces back, which I know he will, he can really just move forward, because they got a lot of season left. There's a lot of opportunity in front of them. This one's going to hurt as far as the national level. I don't think we're really going to be in the playoff contention now. But there's still, some great bowl games that we have to look forward to. And, a 10-win season goes a long way for these guys.
Obviously this team, and it comes from Fran on down. Like, we heard it from the day he was hired, talking about we want to compete for conference championships and this and that. And they were very open about stating that. And, you said it, realistically, that's off the table this year. But there's still, as you said, there's lots of good things to go for. How do you think Fran within the group adjust the messaging here going forward for the rest of the season?
I think they're trying to build a culture. I think that's the biggest thing for Fran. The fact that it's his first year and that we were talking about playoff contentions is incredible. For them, they're trying to build that culture. They're trying to get those recruits established something that, upstate New York, we're not just known for basketball, but we're known for football as well, and become more of those powerhouse schools. And he's bringing in the recruits. He's bringing in the right coaches. He's bringing in the hype. And unfortunately, it's just one game. One game's not going to make or break your career. I got a lot of respect for Coach Brown. Even in his post-game interviews, he just takes it as it is and wears it on the chin. And that's what you really respect from a coach, from a leader, and somebody who's building this program. So as bad as it was, there are positives from this. It's crazy to think, this game is really going to come and kind of put a nail in the championship hopes there, but there's a lot to build for here, and 10 wins is still a big thing, and you never know. It's other teams could lose, other things could happen. I've seen crazier. Vanderbilt's on a roll this year. You never know what's going to happen, so you got to keep faith. You got to stay optimistic, and you just got to take it game by game and erase the last one and move on to the next.
All right, put the quarterback hat on. So you mentioned the Miami game, or pick whatever game you want that you had in your career that went awry. When you're, hammering into the film the next game and you're watching it back, like, how much are you breaking down everything that went wrong versus how much you're like, let's just move past it? How do you handle those moments to get ready for the next week?
Yeah, you got to take ownership. And you know what? The one thing you learn about film is it's never as bad as it looks, and it's never as good as it looks. So going back into it, in the moment, you're like, oh, gosh, 4 interceptions first half, 5. But then, even if with Miami, we had a wheel route that, basically there's miscommunication 2 times, which should not have happened. And I was essentially throwing a wheel route, and he was stopping, 10 yards short, 15 yards short. So I basically just was throwing up Hail Marys to the defensive backs. And I'm sure there was some miscommunication going on with Kyle and his receivers there in that first half as well. So they go back in, they establish some connections, establish what went wrong. This is a first-year quarterback, a first-year offense, and new receivers with him. It takes time to grow. You learn from these mistakes. So the biggest thing is learning, growing, and moving on and making sure that those mistakes do not happen again.
Obviously, I think we looked to last night, the offensive line really struggled. McCord was under pressure the whole game. You mentioned the running game. There were no holes to go through whenever they did try to do that. I thought they had been making some incremental gains to this point, and then, last night happens. How do you see that group responding going forward? Because you certainly know how important those 5 guys in front of you are.
Yeah, and I hate blaming the offensive line. I never wanted to in my career. Those guys work so hard. There's so many things, and that is one of the hardest positions to learn. You got guys flying from all places, and you got to, protect a guy without holding them. There's always something that can go wrong. Nobody really praises them if you make a great block, but they're going to negate or give you some criticism if you hold or if you miss a block. So I think for them, it's as defense, when you know that a team is down 20-21, they're going to throw the ball. These guys are pinning the ears back. They had such an uphill battle. They've been very solid in the first couple of games here, and it's just tough. I think Kyle wasn't as confident as he was in that second half just because of what had happened in the first. So I don't think he was as decisive with his decisions, which obviously when you're holding the ball longer, the line has to block longer. And again, it was just bad after bad. But it was one game. So I think they're going to bounce back and they're going to go back. They're going to watch this film and they're really going to move on. So this next game will be very telling. I will see, you can learn a lot from a team, how they handle adversity. And guess what? They just got, punched in the face. How are they going to respond here? If they come back out next week and, they put a whooping on the other team, then obviously this team is going to be built for success here. So you can't let Pete beat you twice.
Yeah, I'd say the Stanford loss, right? They responded extremely well to that after losing that game and then going out and getting UNLV and NC State in the ensuing weeks. And, the defense, obviously it's a weird game for the defense, right? You surrender 41 points, but most of it had nothing to do with you, so you can't look at those stats. How do you think the D played? Because you get Marlowe back, and, man, we didn't know it was going to happen until right before the game. He ends up playing basically almost every snap on defense. What'd you make of that, and what you saw with him reintegrated in the lineup?
Yeah, I thought that was really great to see, and it's just, again, grit and determination, and obviously playing through things. So you just got to tip your cap. And from a player standpoint, when you see a guy doing that, it just really motivates you. So he's out there, he's giving it all for the team, so it's going to help. Move the team forward, and I think that just comes from Coach Brown and what he's instilled in this team, and it's just a selflessness of this team, which is going to lead to a lot of success down the road.
Yeah, you said it too. Like Fran, these things go wrong, and he lumps it all on himself, right? How far does that go in the locker room when you see the head coach out there doing that after a game like that last night?
That is so huge. That a lot of it comes. It's just as much of a mental game as it is physical. So when you have a coach who's in your corner, who's letting you make mistakes and who's going to wear those mistakes, that is so big. I mean, if you have a coach who's kind of throwing you under the bus or that, it'll really create some animosity in the locker room. But again, these guys have so much respect for Coach Brown, and as do I, just from the way he is and the way he carries himself. And he's going to be in a great position here for the future. I think Syracuse has got their guy, and he just brings that dog and that grit with him, and it just rubs off on the players. But just the fact that he's able to own that accountability just makes you want to play for him. And I know I as a player would really respect that. And when you had a coach who would go to bat for you, you want to do anything you can to make them happy, prove them right, and really just gain their respect.
All right, Eric, rough one last night. Hopefully we don't get a repeat performance next week, but enjoy your weekend, man. We'll talk next Friday, all right?
Thanks, Brian. You have a great one.
There he goes, our guy, Eric